Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So, on today's episode, I'm going to be taking you through the deadliest creatures in Magic. The second that one of these creatures hits the board, your opponents are going to be shaking in their shoes. They truly know that their time is nearly up. Because with some of these creatures, it just takes one swing to take them out. So what are these deadly creatures that are going to give your opponents nightmares? Well, let's jump into it to find out. First up, let's talk about some creatures that have absolutely incredible amounts of power, and we're going to be starting off with Malignus. Malignus is a star elemental spirit with power toughness equal to half the highest life total among your opponents, rounded up. And damage that be dealt by Malignus can't be prevented. At just 5 mana in total, costing 3 red, Malignus holds incredible amounts of power. Again, its power toughness are both based off of your opponent that has the highest life total. So, for example, let's just say that the opponent with the highest life total has 40 life. Malignus's power and toughness are going to be each equal to half that, so yeah, a 20/20 for 5 mana. And keep in mind that the damage from Malignus can't be prevented, so my apologies to Spore Frog and every other fog type effect. Regardless, keep in mind that this can easily be a one-shot kill in a lot of circumstances. For example, if just one opponent has twice as much life as another opponent, well, then this is going to be a one-shot kill on that player with lesser life. Again, say that this is a 20/20 thanks to one of our opponents having 40 life, well, if another opponent is only at 20 life, again, this can just take them out in one hit. And we can even take out the player at 40 life by doubling up this card's damage or doubling up its power toughness with another card. And there are multiple cards that can help us with that, even just in mono red. So yeah, Malignus can utilize our opponent's life totals against them, and it can be an incredibly deadly force. But next up, let's move on to Evra Halcyon Witness, which is a 4/4 avatar with lifelink for 4 white. By paying 4, you can exchange your life total with Evra Halcyon Witness's power. So whereas Malignus utilizes our opponent's life totals, Evra utilizes ours. Though, keep in mind that this can be a very high risk, very high reward play. Again, let's just say that we're at 40 life. By paying 4, we swap our life total with Evra's power, so Evra is now a 44, and we have 4 life. And yet, a 40 power creature can easily take out most players if we can get it through. Essentially, we can one-shot players if we've got more life than them when we start things off. And obviously, if we do connect with Evra, we can gain a ton of life back thanks to that life link. But again, this is a high-risk, high-reward play because, again, we are making ourselves very vulnerable, and again, on top of that, if this is dealt with, well, then we're kind of out of luck. Then we're simply at 4 life, and we're out a 40 power creature on the board. Regardless, Evra can definitely be incredibly deadly. Next up though, let's move on and talk about another avatar with Serra Avatar. Serra Avatar is a star avatar for 4 white. Its power and toughness are each equal to our life total, and when Serra Avatar is put into a graveyard from anywhere, we shuffle into its owner's library. So Serra Avatar is a lot like Evra, but without a lot of the risk. We don't need to swap our life total or anything like that to make Serra Avatar powerful, it just is. And as long as our life total is larger than an opponent's life total, this is a one-shot kill to them. And while 7 mana might be on the high side of a mana cost, that's going to be well worth it for a 40/40. Or, you know, even higher if you've got life gain synergies in your deck. And even if Serra Avatar is dealt with, well, you can get it back when it's shuffled into your library and you draw into it again. But a somewhat similar and potentially even deadlier creature comes with Soul of Eternity. This is a star avatar for 5 white. Its power toughness are equal to your life total, and it's got Encore for 7 white. So that means that you pay that cost, and then you exile this card from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They gain haste, sacrifice them, they gain the next end step, activate only as a sorcery. So this is essentially a Serra Avatar that we can get back in a different and even bigger way. Essentially, if it's in our graveyard, we can make 3 hasty copies of it that can just attack right away. So if we've got the highest life total out of all players and we can get them all through, well then that's game over for our opponents. I mean, think about it. Let's say you cast Rout at instant speed right before your turn to wipe the board, then next turn you can just encore and win. I mean, how many creatures out there can take out all 3 of your opponents in a big flashy play all at once? So yeah, Soul of Eternity can be incredibly deadly. And speaking of incredibly deadly, let's talk about Lord of Extinction. Lord of Extinction is a star elemental for 3 black-green. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in all graveyards. Yeah, you heard me right. I said all graveyards, not just your own. This thing can be massive in absolutely no time. Even just as a game naturally progressive, graveyards are going to fill up. Maybe your opponent cracks a fetch land, maybe they cast a spell, maybe one of their creatures dies. There's going to be plenty of things going into their graveyard. And of course, if you've got cards that mill yourself or your opponents or everyone, you're going to be having a lot of fun with this card. It really doesn't take much time at all for this 5-mana creature to be a 2-shot and then a 1-shot kill. So yeah, its name is definitely very fitting with the Lord of Extinction, because your opponents are going to be extinct in no time. Now the last card I want to bring up in this category technically isn't a creature, but I still want to bring it up, so here we go. Body of Research is a sorcery for green, blue. It says create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, put X+1 counters on it where X is the number of cards in your library. So whereas Lord of Extinction cares about cards in graveyards, this one cares about cards in your library. And of course, by the time that you cast this, you can still easily have 70 or 80 cards in your library, and yeah, that's going to be a massive fractal token. Hitting an opponent with this is very much going to be overkill. And in these colors, you've got ways to get it through, like, just giving it trample, which is usually just going to be enough. If you swing with an 80/80 and it's got trample, your opponent's going to need a lot of blockers out there, and chances are they're not going to have enough. And of course, since you've got access to blue, you've got plenty of other ways to get it through and basically guarantee that it gets through. Regardless, although it technically isn't a creature, I just wanted to highlight Body of Research as a way to create an incredibly powerful and deadly creature. But now it's time for us to move away from these creatures that have incredible power and talk about some creatures that are deadly in a different way, but still a very effective way. So now it's time to talk about everyone's favorite mechanic, Infect. And what better way to start off the Infect conversation than to talk about Skithiryx, better known as Skittles. Skithiryx the Blight Dragon is a 4/4 dragon skeleton with flying, and in fact that costs 3 black. Infect means that this creature deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and to players in the form of poison counters. And yes, even in Commander, it only takes 10 poison counters to take a player out. Skithiryx also has pay a black, it gains haste until end of turn, and by paying black, we regenerate Skithiryx. So without any other help, Skithiryx is a 3-shot kill on any opponent no matter what their life total is. And of course, we can have it swing right away by giving it haste, and we can also protect it by regenerating it. But of course, there are plenty of ways to make Skithiryx even deadlier. I mean, just with a pump effect or 2, this can easily become a 1-shot kill. And again, in combination with that haste, this can be an incredibly deadly creature that can kill out of nowhere. So yeah, Infect is an incredibly deadly thing. And I believe no creature demonstrates this better than Blightsteel Colossus. Blightsteel Colossus is an 11/11 golem with trample, infect, and indestructible that costs 12 mana. On top of that, if you put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Blightsteel Colossus, then shuffle into its owner's library instead. Yeah, Blightsteel Colossus is basically guaranteed to be a 1-shot kill if you can get it through. And even if you can't, it's got trample, so it can get a lot of infect damage through and be a 2-shot kill very easily, or a 1-shot kill still if they only have 1 toughness to block. And again, on top of all of that, this thing is incredibly hard to deal with. Not only does it have indestructible, but if your opponents somehow get it into your graveyard, it just shovels back into your library. So yeah, Blightsteel Colossus truly is something straight out of a nightmare and definitely one of the deadliest creatures in Magic. But now let's move on and talk about some creatures that are deadly in yet even a different way than this. And the first deadly creature that I want to bring up in this category is Virtus the Veiled. Virtus the Veiled is a 1/1 Azra Assassin that costs 2 and a black. It has Death Touch, and when it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. The phrase small but mighty definitely comes to mind when I see Virtus the Veiled. This may just be a 1/1, but it can do a massive amount of hurt to an opponent. As a creature with Death Touch, your opponents are going to have a hard time blocking this, but they basically have to because, if they don't, they're losing a lot of their life. Even if an opponent has a life gain deck and it is an absurd amount of life, let's just say 100, this can cut them down to size and then make it a much more manageable number for you. And if you give this first strike, it can be even harder to deal with in combat. Speaking of which, if you give it double strike, it's twice as impactful on the hit. Because if this gets through and hits an opponent, they're going to lose half their life, and then they lose half their life again. So yeah, Virtus the Veiled is small, but mighty, and very deadly. But now let's jump into a somewhat similar card, but different with Ebonblade Reaper. It's a 1/1 human cleric for 2 and a black, but it's got a morph cost of 3 black. Whenever it attacks, you lose half your life, rounded up. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life, rounded up. So by playing this face down as a morph, your opponents don't know what it is. It's just a standard 2/2. They're probably not going to assume it's this, and actually as the joke goes, they're probably just going to assume that it's Willbender, because everything that is a morph is Willbender. Regardless, when you swing with your unassuming 2/2, if your opponent doesn't block it, they're in big trouble. You pay the morph cost, you flip this up, and your opponent is terrified to learn that they're going to be losing half their life. Now, after that, if you're going to be swinging further, well, you're taking a risk. Because again, with this face up, when you attack, you're going to be losing half your life. So again, a high risk, high reward play. But next up, let's move on to yet another fun card to hit your opponents with, and one that technically isn't a creature, but kind of is, so I'm including it anyways with Scytheclaw. Scytheclaw is an equipment for 5 that has living weapons, so when it enters the battlefield, you get a 0/0 black germ creature token, and you attach this to it. The equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life, rounded up. So now you can turn any of your creatures into the deadliest creature on the board, or just keep it on the germ. By suiting up one of your evasive creatures with this, though, you're gonna have a lot of fun getting through. Or maybe suit it up on something that is evasive and also might have double strike. Yeah, Scytheclaw does truly just make everything better. I guess just for you. But that's the important thing. Anyways, speaking of making things better and having fun, let's talk about Master of Cruelties. Master of Cruelties is a 1/4 demon with First Strike and Death Touch. It can only attack alone, and whenever it attacks a player and isn't blocked, that player's life total becomes 1. Master of Cruelties assigns no combat damage this combat. First off, again, as a First Strike Death Toucher, this is a really hard card to block. It assigns that damage first, and whatever creature blocked it is dead thanks to that Death Touch. But again, your opponents are basically gonna have to block it, unless they want their life total to become just 1. No matter if your opponent is at 100 life, or 100,000 life, or even 100 million life, it doesn't matter. If that player doesn't block it, then they are at 1 life. And yeah, you can find plenty of ways to win from there. So yeah, I would definitely say that Master of Cruelties is one of the deadliest creatures in Magic's history. But there's still a creature that is even deadlier than this. And that, of course, would be Phage the Untouchable. Phage is a 4/4 avatar minion that costs 3 black. When it enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast it from your hand, you lose the game. Whenever Phage deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature, it can't be regenerated. And whenever Phage deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. In my opinion, Phage is the deadliest creature in Magic's history for a couple of reasons. First off, if for whatever reason you try to cheat this into play, Phage takes you out. And actually, even if someone just blinks this and it comes back into play under your control, you lose. So yeah, Phage can be incredibly deadly, even to its owner. But she's especially deadly to your opponents because, again, if she just gets through and hits an opponent once, they're gone. So have fun getting Phage out, getting her through, and taking out your opponents in absolutely no time. Just make sure you get her out in the right way, or you're going to be very, very, very dead. Or if you want a different way to take out all of your opponents at once, make sure you look up the very fun combo with this with Fractured Identity. Yeah, Phage the Untouchable is an incredibly deadly force in Magic. But before we move on to our last category, I just want to highlight one incredibly deadly token. This token, created by Vraska the Unseen's Ultimate, is an incredibly deadly force. It's a 1/1 assassin that has whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. So in a way, it's kind of like a Phage, and actually with that Vraska, you get 3 of these tokens when you ultimate. So again, yes, I know it's technically not a creature card, but it is a creature token, so I wanted to highlight it here. Regardless, now let's move on to our final category and talk about some more creatures that are deadly, but in an incredibly different way. First up, let's talk about a creature that you might not have expected to see on this list with Cephalid Constable. Cephalid Constable is a 1/1 Cephalid wizard that costs 1 blue. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, return up to that many target permanents that player controls to their owner's hands. So whereas Cephalid Constable might seem like an unassuming 1/1, do not let it fool you. If it is pumped and it can get through, that is game over for one player. Okay, technically it's not game over, but if someone bounces back almost all your permanents, especially all of your lands, that is game over essentially. So again, do not let this unassuming octopus wizard thingy fool you. It is incredibly deadly. And then next up we've got a creature that is definitely not unassuming with Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. It's a 12/12 Eldrazi that costs 10, and whenever you cast a spell you draw 4 cards. Oh, and on top of that, it's got Annihilator 4, so whenever this creature attacks, the defending player sacrifices 4 permanents. And if that wasn't enough, when it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their graveyard into their library. Annihilator is an incredibly deadly mechanic, and Annihilator 4 is massive. So even if you block this 12/12, you're still going to be losing a lot of things. You can only last so long when you're losing 4 permanents on each swing. It's definitely no secret that the Eldrazi are some of the deadliest creatures in Magic. So of course, let's talk about the potentially even deadlier Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. This is a 10/10 Eldrazi for 11, and when you cast this spell, destroy target permanent. On top of that, it's indestructible, and like Kozilek, also has Annihilator 4. So this Eldrazi is harder to deal with, and it's got that Annihilator 4, so best of luck if you're going up against it. But I don't think even luck can save you from Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. I mean, perhaps the only thing that can actually save you is if you're playing Commander, and yeah, this thing's banned there, so you're safe there. But in other formats, you're not. Emrakul is a 15/15 Eldrazi that costs 15. It can't be countered. When you cast this spell, take an extra turn for this one. It's got Flying Protection from colored spells and Annihilator 6. Yes, you heard me right. Annihilator 6. So in just one swing, your board's probably going to be decimated, and in 2 swings, your board's probably going to be gone. So if you're playing a format outside of Commander, best of luck. But again, that's probably not even going to help you against this incredibly deadly creature. But let's finish things off with another deadly creature that is actually legal in Commander with Rakdos the Defiler. Rakdos is a 7/6 demon with flying and trample that costs 2 black, red. When it attacks, you have to sacrifice half the non-demon permanents you control, rounded up. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player sacrifices half the non-demon permanents they control, rounded up. So chances are that since this is a 7/6 with Flample, it's going to be able to get damage through on one of your opponents, if not all of them. Now, when that happens, your opponent is going to be down a lot of permanents, most likely exactly half of them. Unless you're playing against a demon tribal deck as well. But again, to get that incredibly deadly payoff, well, you're taking a risk as well, because when you swing, you're going to be losing a lot of your things. Now, of course, there are certain ways around this and ways to get things back, but on its face, this is an incredibly deadly creature, again, not just for your opponents, but also for you. But if you're a Rakdos player, well, you kinda signed up for those high-risk, high-reward plays. Regardless, I hope that you enjoyed this episode because I had a lot of fun making it. But now it's time for me to hear from you, so in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are. And let me know if you can think of any incredibly deadly creatures in Magic that I missed and should have highlighted. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one.